Can the sun lie? Asked a U.S. court in 1886. Perhaps we may say that, though the sun does not lie, the liar may use the sun as a tool. Let us then beware of the liar who lies in the name of the sun. Sun pictures transformed the courtrooms of the late 19th century. For the first time, evidence was entered into legal proceedings that had been produced by a non-human agent, one whose motivations could not be judged, nor whose actions tried for perjury. Could the streaming radiance of the sun manipulate the natural order of things and transform stable realities into spectral images that emerged out of the collusion of chemistry and light? Or did sunlight's persuasive powers of analogy produce such convincing pictures of the real that the subjective processes of human recollection could, it appeared, be overcome? Indeed, proponents of the legal aid provided by sunlight were swift to dismiss any doubts as to its fidelity. We cannot conceive of a more impartial and truthful witness than the sun, as its light stamps and seals the similitude of the wound on the photograph put before the jury. It would be more accurate than the memory of witnesses, and as the object of all is to show truth, why should not this dumb witness show it? Human observations could be tainted, whereas the photographic memory captured by the direct intercession of sunlight created visible proofs that no jurist could dispute. As photographic practices became more commonplace and awareness of the ease of image manipulation increased, so too did doubts as to their evidentiary value. Soon, photographic experts began to face each other in court. The arrival of the expert signaled another shift, as neither the human eyewitness's ability to account for events, nor photography's technical capacity to record them were sufficiently convincing. A new order of certainty appeared produced by the domain of expertise. This dispute between lay knowledge and scientific expertise is forcefully reanimated by current climate change debates. Indigenous observations and their oral transmissions are reshaping the epistemic frameworks required for understanding long-term environmental transformations. A reordering of expertise and its claims to truth that turn on the evidence proffered by nature itself.
Climate change here in the Arctic is particularly rapid. The impacts and the effects of climate change challenge and threaten our very right and our ability to exist as an Indigenous people.
Over the years, nobody has ever listened to these people. Every time the discussion is about global warming, about the Arctic warming, it's scientists that go up there and do their work, and policymakers depend on these findings. Nobody ever really understands the people up there. In the Canadian Arctic, the sun is setting many kilometers further west along the horizon, and the stars are no longer where they should be. Something is happening. Sunlight is behaving differently in this part of the world, as the warming Arctic air causes temperature inversions and throws the setting sun off kilter. Light is bending and deceiving the eyes that have tracked the position of the sun for generations, using it as an index of place and a marker for direction. The crystalline structures of ice and snow are twisting and morphing, producing a new optical regime born out of climate change. The sun has finally become a liar, colluding with the melting topographies of the north so much so that it can no longer be trusted to guide the Inuit hunters home, as it once did. Climate change transforms the surfaces of the North into a vast array of photographic plates, each of which is recording the atmospheric chemistry of terrestrial change differently. For the Inuit, the world that they once knew finds no analogy, no mirror image in the world they now see. The material registration of light by silver halide particles that came to define the photographic process is warped in a landscape where matter is out of place and sunlight lies. Not only do granule snow particles absorb and capture light, converting billions and billions of grains into a vibrating photographic plate of solar-charged particles, they also act as a vast network of finely ground crystal lenses, focusing and refracting light across the polar regions. As chemical impurities increasingly saturate the snow and rises in temperature reshape the density of the snowpack and liquefy its crystalline structure, the snow also becomes a developing solution, overexposing and distorting the image of nature inscribed onto the land and refracted back through the atmosphere. Snow is the camera lens and photographic substrate, refractive technology, and spectacular image. The blindness caused by snow is already a sign of intrinsic interplay between sunlight, snow, and human vision. An entanglement that will come to signal the anthropogenic violence that now reorganizes the solar spectrum, and Inuit observations under the experimental conditions of global warming. In Zacharias Canuck and Neil Moreau's film, Inuit Knowledge and Climate Change, several Inuit elders make the repeated observation that the setting sun has slowly been moving further west, and that the location of the stars, too, has altered. Has the Earth shifted on its axis, they ask, causing the position of the sun and the stars to change? When the film was pre-screened at the Copenhagen Climate Change Conference in December 2009, it was met with a hostile reaction from the scientific community. We had a litany of scientists come back to us, responding after seeing the news, saying, "This was great to be speaking to Indigenous people about their views. But if you continue to perpetuate this fallacy that the Earth has tilted on its axis, the Inuit would lose all credibility." The Inuits' deep ancestral knowledge of the environment in which they lived and the events that they witnessed was seemingly insufficient for conferring a contingent legitimacy on their speech acts, if their testimonials ran counter to widely accepted scientific truths. The epistemic virtue of objectivity so valued by the scientific community turned not upon a distinction between Western rationality and native cosmology as one might expect, but on who has the authority, and thus the expertise, to speak on behalf of science itself. The point was that the Inuit may have come to the wrong scientific conclusion based on their limited knowledge about how polarized light refraction and thermal inversions work, but their observations were not, in and of themselves, flawed. Their eyes had not deceived them. If anything, the duplicitous agent was one induced by Southern reliance on hydrocarbon-based energy. A new sun had indeed risen at the Global Forum in Copenhagen, its ferocious heat set ablaze by the relentless burning of fossil fuels in cities and factories far removed from their zones of maximum impact. It is this sun that the Inuit observe and now cross-examine. Climate change denial finds its allies in such disputed sunsets, and therefore it comes as no surprise that the scientists at Copenhagen 15 were apprehensive about the seemingly hallucinatory narratives invoked by the Inuit elders. Yet, had they paid greater attention to these stories as paradigmatic of the extreme changes that were taking place in the Arctic, that only a radical proposition might begin to explain what was going on, they would have subverted the counter-narrative of the false witness, in which Inuit vision was deemed fallacious and therefore risked dismissal. The most dangerous perjurer is said to be the one that lies with the full conviction of truth. Let us then beware of the liar who lies in the name of the new sun.